Tonight on Nightline, evacuating Egypt. Christiane Amanpour is on the scene in the middle of an uprising as Americans flee and the ATMs run out of cash. We're in the streets as a revolution brews. Plus, mother and killer. 2 teenage children, a son and a daughter, star athletes and star students, allegedly executed by their own mother. How could it happen? We have the inside story. And the ice storm. With much of the country reeling from repeated winter storms, a forecast to make hearts sink. Could this be the worst one yet? Blizzard, snow, ice, and who knows what else is coming to a town near you.
From the global resources of ABC News, with Terry Moran, Cynthia McFadden, and Bill Weir in New York City. This is Nightline, January 31st, 2011.
Good evening, I'm Cynthia McFadden. We begin in Egypt, where a turning point may well occur in the next few hours. This is the 8th day since Egyptians took to the streets demanding President Mubarak step down. Protest organizers have put out a call for a 1 million-person rally in Cairo's Liberation Square. ABC's Christiane Amanpour, anchor of This Week, spent the entire day on the square assessing the simmering revolt. Christiane?
Cynthia, the protesters have been out all night, paying no attention whatsoever to the curfew as usual. They are very relieved, obviously, now that a big question has been answered. What if the army is given the order to fire? Well, tonight the army seemed to say it would never use force against the protesters. In addition, the new vice president went on television and said that the president, Hosni Mubarak, has ordered him to open immediate talks with the opposition. There was a big reaction to that also on the street. We were with the protesters all day, listening to their hopes, their dreams, and their grievances.
This is what greeted us this morning in Cairo, a new display of force by the Egyptian army on day 7 of the unprecedented protests rocking Egypt. We made our way to Tahrir Square, or Liberation Square in English, perhaps a fitting name for the place that's been the site of this uprising of people demanding freedom. As we approached the square, we saw more tanks, more armored vehicles, more foot soldiers, trying to slow the traffic of protesters who've been streaming in for the past week. We even saw them installing concrete roadblocks.
Excuse me, can I ask you something?
But they weren't very happy to see us filming them.
Okay.
Soldiers and police tried to block us and the protesters from getting into the square, and they threatened to take our cameras.
We're not allowed to film on pain of having our cameras and film taken. We're not allowed to go into the square, nor are the demonstrators. We spoke to an army captain who doesn't want to go on camera, but who told me that his orders are to maintain discipline and to seal the square.
But by midday, the army seemed to have given up trying. The crowds were returning to Tahrir Square en masse, and they were being let in.
So why are you out on the streets? Life is good for you. You earn a living, you're from a good family. Why are you here?
But I know that this is, but we need more. We need to feel free in our country.
As we moved closer to the square, we did find a checkpoint, but this one was set up by the protesters themselves. They say they're checking IDs to make sure the only people there are ordinary Egyptians, not the police, who they blame for the first days of violence. At one point, we got caught up in the crowd surging forward towards the square. But past the bottleneck, the shoving stopped and the protesters seemed to be in good spirits.
Welcome to Cairo. Welcome.
And it was that optimistic spirit that you felt in the square today. Flags waving, people singing, even a so-called freedom feast. This man told us that he brought his wife and young children with him to witness history.
What do you think of all of this noise?
History may have been on his father's mind, But the 6-year-old told me that all he really wanted was a hamburger.
President Hosni Mubarak change.
And they definitely wanted to be heard. Every time we turned around, there was someone trying to vent their frustration.
Mubarak, we will put you to a crushing defeat. Whatever you do, you will be put to a crushing defeat. We never want you.
If that sounds like a primal scream, that's because it is. These are people who haven't been able to speak their mind for 30 years. That's how long strongman Hosni Mubarak has been their president. For decades, his name was the only name on the ballot. Mubarak swore in a new cabinet today and ordered his new vice president to start talking to the opposition. But each step he takes to placate the people just seems to further infuriate them. They are impatient for him to leave, but the United States and its allies in the region want to see an orderly transition, unclear about what kind of leader would follow. The country's young people are credited with starting the fire, which was stoked through Facebook postings. It's an elder statesman, though, who's emerged as the movement's figurehead. Mohammed El-Baradei, the former chief of the IAEA, the UN nuclear agency, and a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He's not quite charismatic enough and doesn't have enough of a base to be a grassroots favorite, but he's been embraced by the crowd and accepted as a negotiator by all of the various players. He's also secular, which may help calm Western fears that an overthrow of the regime here could lead to an Islamic State. But even as they paused for evening prayers, the people here tell us over and over again that this is not about religion.
I don't need an Islamic government. I don't need a revolution like Iran and to be a harbor for terrorists.
The topic is such a hot button that I could hardly ask the question of this man.
Are you looking for an Islamic revolution?
Before another man angrily jumped in.
No, listen, you're trying to trick him with the question.
I'm not looking...
This is not an Islamic revolution. This is not an Islamic revolution.
Okay.
No, that's a tricky question.
Okay, let me ask him. Ask him in Arabic.
ما تجاوبش. هي بتقول لك دي ثورة إسلامية، هل دي ثورة إسلامية؟
No. Okay. Now tell me why are you so angry?
Because you know what? The American media tried to say this is going to happen what happened to Iran before.
Okay.
No, this is absolutely different.
What's really different is the sense that something new is taking hold in the Arab world. A desire for democracy and the courage to pursue it.
I was one of the sleeping majority and now I wake up.
And so they'll push on, they say. As darkness fell, the protesters were camped out, planning to spend another night here in Liberation Square, the heart of a movement which they hope will only beat stronger.
The protest leaders are calling for Tuesday to be a huge demonstration of force. They're calling for 1 million people to come out into the streets of Cairo and elsewhere around Egypt. The Egyptian government doesn't want any of that, and they say that they're stopping trains from coming into this capital. Cynthia?
Thank you, Christiane. Just hours to go before that planned march. Now the government's also expected to shut down cell phone service as well as halt those trains. For more on the story, turn to Good Morning America, World News with Diane Sawyer, and Nightline tomorrow night for our continuing coverage.